Good morning, students. Today it's FY BCom class. We'll study with our third section, that is communication and life skill, which is one of the very important section from the examination point of view as well as in our day-to-day practical life. This is something very useful and applicable at the footstep of our life. So, the process of communication. I have told you it is a process and there are various aspects in this process which we have to deal with to make our communication more and more effective. So first, we'll try to understand what exactly communication means. Basically, it's a word arrived from a Latin word which means to share. Share with a single person or with a group of people, and it is sharing of concepts, thoughts, emotions or some of the other messages. So we will try to identify, we'll try to define what exactly the process of communication means. Just like I have told you, there are types of communication. Broadly, in our syllabus, we have two types of communication. One is written communication and another is spoken communication. In both these types of communication, there are some common features as well as there are some differences when we are conducting or we are handling this process of communication. Basically, when a person or a group of people intended to convey some message and that message is received by the other side, understood by the other side, this whole process is called as communication. So the important thing is that we are sharing something which is intended, which is something already decided, and that decided message, that decided concepts, that decided ideas are shared among the people, shared among the groups with some media which are common among this group of people. And this whole idea, this whole process is considered as communication, where minimum here two sides we require, and these sides are called as sender and receiver. In case of written communication, the writer or author is called as a sender. And in case of spoken communication, speaker is a sender and the role of receiver is played by the listener. So these are called as the types of communication, and this process of sharing is somewhere having some intended message. That means the message is already decided. There is always some goal. There is always some aim behind the message, behind this process of communication. Take a very simple example in our day-to-day life. An advertisement is an example of communication where the industry or the producer tried to influence the consumers or the customer by publishing or showing the advertisement. That is called as the goal. The businessman or the industrialist want to increase the sale of the product, want to increase the profit, and that's why advertisement is the media of communication where that product or the service is the goal, is the aim, it's shown to the audience, to the customers to the clients, and that profit or the sale should be increased. Or another example, between a family, parent and children. Parent always want to inculcate some values, some ideas, some morals to their children. And that values, that ideas, they continuously try to convey through various stories, through various dialogues, conversation among them, and the children understood that and inculcate some morals or the values. That is also the example of communication, where a goal or aim is fixed to convey the particular concept, to convey the particular message through the media, which is something shared or common between the sender and the receiver. So these are some particular aspects of communication which we always have to consider. And these aspects are: one, there must be some message. There must be a shared medium. For example, when we are talking about spoken communication, the language which we are shared, English language, Marathi language, Hindi language, whichever is understood by the receiver and by the sender, or the speaker and the listener, it's called as the shared medium. The medium is not always verbal. That means the words are not only the medium, but there are so many non-verbal media also. For example, our body language, our eye contact, the position of our standing, position, how you sit, how you stand, the tone of our voice, etc. are called as non-verbal media of communication. So the message is not only the verbal message, but that message can be conveyed through the non-verbal media like our facial expressions, eye contact, and signals, color code. There are so many other non-verbal media which added to our verbal message, and the whole communication tried to achieve its goal, tried to convey the maximum concepts to the receiver. And here in our syllabus, the first unit is basically focused with the spoken communication. Here, meeting and greeting people and making a dialogue is our unit number 1 under this section of communication and life skills. So, meeting, greeting people and dialogue making is one of the very important process when we are living in a society. There are various other types of making dialogue. For example, sometime we have to introduce ourselves, sometime we have to request, we have to apologize, we have to report, we have to ask question. These are called as the various forms of dialogue making, as well as to whom we are making a dialogue. According to that, that means the relationship between the speaker and the listener also matters to differentiate between a formal dialogue and an informal dialogue, where the verbal as well as non-verbal communication also matters a lot to convey the message into its complete form. So, now we will concentrate on the types of dialogues. Just like I have told you, the broadly two types of dialogues we are considering here. One is a formal dialogue and another is informal dialogue. So now let's understand what is formal dialogue and what is informal dialogue, or what are the differences between them. There are broadly two types of dialogue. One is a formal dialogue, another is a informal dialogue. So the formal dialogue is also called as official, business, or the professional communication, or a professional dialogue, where there are some principles, there are some rules, regulation which we have to follow in a serious manner. Instead of that, the informal type of dialogue means the dialogue which we are making among the people who are comparatively close to us or who are near and dear to us, and the topics or the subject or the intended meanings which we want to convey through the dialogue also matters here to make these differences between formal dialogue and informal dialogue. Here, if the relationship between the speaker and the listener, which are important parts of the dialogue, it's having a business purpose or having a professional relationship, then that type of dialogue is considered as a formal dialogue, where we have to follow the rules, regulations, some politeness principles, as well as the strict vocabulary, strict format of grammatical rules also we have to follow. Instead of that, informal dialogues are comparatively less bound with the rules and regulations, where you can easily convey your emotions, where you can easily convey ideas to the other person, which less bothered with the choice of words as well as the choice of topic. Get the idea, students? So here the formal dialogue, our focus is here basically on the formal dialogue, which at the workplace, at the time of interview, at the time of meeting people who are strange to you and who are having a business or a workplace relationship with you, among them the dialogues are made which are called as a formal dialogue. The very common example or very important example at this stage of our life is interview. Giving responses, giving the effective interview responses is one of the very important tasks we have to learn here in dialogue making. Whenever we are meeting with an interview panel, first time we are meeting with the strangers, and we have to create a very positive impression within this short piece of conversation. That formal dialogue is very important, which can change our course of life. And that's why making this short piece of conversation, making this short piece of dialogue, which is very limited to time, we have hardly 8 to 10 minutes in our hand, and within that 10 minutes we have to express our ideas, we have to create our positive impression through this formal dialogue. So how to make effective professional communication, effective business communication is we are learning in this unit. Get my point, students? So now we will consider what are the important aspects of formal communication or professional communication. So formal dialogue, formal or business. Basically, this communication is spoken communication, and that's why verbal as well as non-verbal media is equally important, which is shared between the listener and speaker, which is called as a common media here. In this business communication, in this formal communication, there is some intended message. There is some goal or the aim which the listener and the speaker both are expecting here. Here, the sender, that means the speaker, have some type of goal, have some type of message which he or she wanted to convey as effectively as possible to the receiver, and according to that the receiver send the responses and changes the role to become a speaker. And this whole process is called as the process of communication, where the relationship in case of business communication is very formal, where either you are a customer or a client and a business person, or a interview candidate and interview panel. In this relationship, here we have seen there are some rules, regulation, there are some language barriers also which we have to consider. And the most important thing is that we must have a confidence among ourselves. The confidence is one of the very important thing to make this process of communication as effective as possible. And it is not a one-day process to achieve a self-confidence, because in case of spoken communication, the content or the message or the idea, with that idea are non-verbal medias like our facial expression, the tone of the voice, our body language, which are definitely affected by the confidence, the faith, the belief the speaker having on himself or herself. And that's why first and the very important thing, we have to work over our confidence. Take a very simple example. Whenever there is a chance to speak in front of a group of people who are strangers to us, what are the problems we are facing? The very simple thing, the problem we are facing is the stammering of voice, not able to think what I have to say, the confusion, shivering, sweating, all these n number of things body started responding. Why? Because we are not having a practice. Maybe first time or maybe very rarely we came across with a situation when we got a chance to become a speaker, or maximum of time we like to sit at the back bench and like to listen. But in case of business communication, everybody have to become an effective speaker. An interview is one of the golden chance where you can prove yourself that you are the most eligible candidate for the vacancy and for the post. And within that 8 to 10 minutes, within that communication, within that dialogue, you have to prove your abilities and you have to prove that you are the most skilled person, the most suitable candidate for the organization. And that's why this goal, this message have to be conveyed as effectively as possible, as positively as possible. And there are some, here we have seen some practice methods. There are some steps which everybody can practice and everybody can achieve this goal. And that practices, that steps we have to learn here. One of them, which just now I have referred, having confidence in yourself. And confidence is not something which the other person can give you, or you can borrow it, or you can purchase it in the market. It is something which we have to inculcate by doing lot of practice, by having a courage or having the enough content which is there required for the situation. Here the situation is the interview, as an example we have taken. So we must be very sure about the information or the data which we want to convey to the other person. The content which we have must be guaranteed. The research which we have taken, the studies which we have performed, it provides you that confidence. So the first and the very important thing, whatever we are saying, whatever the words we are exchanging, whatever the data you are sharing, whatever the message we are conveying to the listener, we must be sure about that. The truthfulness of our message is one of the key thing for increasing or boosting our confidence. Get the idea? So the next important thing, a practice. Even if we are sure about the data, even if we have a lot of research and the studies done, if we are lacking in the practice, it is very natural thing that whenever we are communicating with the other person first time, or it is with the strangers, there is a little bit botheration or the nervousness. But it is very important to control that nervousness. It is very important to follow some rules so that this nervousness should not become the master of our communication process. That nervousness, or that here we have seen fear, should be overcome, and then our communication become more and more effective. So becoming nervous, having the fear of communication among the stranger is one of the very common thing. So students, today we will learn this lesson that our content, our information must be collected by the serious studies and research we have done. And second important thing, we have to work over ourselves to increase or to boost our confidence, and practice is one of the major here role played. Regular practice, whenever we got a chance, we should talk with the strangers. We should have the ability to communicate. We should be proactive whenever we are getting a chance to communicate with the others. In the next session, we will understand the next features to make this process of formal communication to more effective, and how to overcome the hurdles which we all are facing for formal communication. Okay, thank you.